You think you understand manipulation until someone convinces you that sleeping in your own guest room is an act of love. I bought a house in Chiang Mai to build a life with someone. Now I pay rent to live in the smallest room while her entire family has taken over everything I worked for. The worst part, I still tell myself this is temporary. That's what 6 months of gaslighting does to a man. It makes you grateful for the scraps of your own life. If our stories resonate with you, don't forget to like, comment, and tell us where you're watching from. This story came from one of our viewers in Thailand. He asked us to share it because he says other men need to hear this warning. I'm Curtis, 52 years old, retired construction manager from Phoenix. 2 years ago, I met Warisa during what was supposed to be just another vacation in Thailand. She wasn't like the other women I'd met during my previous trips. She had her own job managing a restaurant in Chiang Mai, her own savings account, her own independence. When she smiled, it felt genuine. When she talked about her dreams of opening a small cafe someday, I could see the determination in her eyes. I don't need man to take care of me, she said during one of our long evening walks through the night markets. But I want partner to build something beautiful together. Those words hit me harder than I expected. After 25 years in construction and a divorce that left me questioning everything about relationships, here was a woman who wanted to create something, not just take something. I extended my trip 3 times that year, flying back and forth between Phoenix and Chiang Mai like a lovesick teenager. Each visit, our connection deepened. We talked about everything: her childhood growing up in a small village, my struggles with feeling invisible after retirement, our shared love of quiet mornings and good coffee. You make me feel like myself again, I told her one night as we sat on her tiny apartment balcony. You make me want to be brave, she replied, taking my hand. By December, I'd made my decision. I liquidated my Phoenix rental properties, cashed out my retirement accounts, and bought a beautiful 3-bedroom house with a garden in Chiang Mai. Not a rental, not a temporary arrangement, a home. Our home. Warisa cried when I showed her the deed with both our names discussed for the future. This is really ours? She whispered, walking through the empty rooms. This is really ours, I confirmed, pulling her close. We spent weeks planning how to furnish each room, where to put the coffee station, which corner would be perfect for her morning yoga practice. The master bedroom had a view of the mountains. The guest room would be for friends visiting from America. The 3rd room would be our office space, maybe even a nursery someday, though we hadn't talked about that possibility yet. Everything felt perfect. Everything felt like the beginning of the life I'd always wanted but never knew how to build. I love you, Curtis, Warisa said the night we moved in together, surrounded by boxes and takeout containers. I love our future. I believed her completely. 6 months ago, everything changed with a phone call. I was in the garden, trying to figure out why our mango tree wasn't flowering, when I heard Warisa's voice rise from inside the house. She was speaking rapid Thai, her tone shifting between concerned and urgent. When she found me 20 minutes later, her eyes were red from crying. My cousin Sirada is in trouble, she said, sitting heavily on our garden bench. Her landlord in Bangkok is kicking her out. Some dispute about damages that aren't her fault. She has nowhere to go. I set down my gardening tools and sat beside her. Warisa rarely talked about her extended family, but I knew how important family loyalty was in Thai culture. What does she need? I asked. Just somewhere to stay for 2 weeks while she finds new apartment, Warisa said quickly. She has good job in hotel management, has money saved, just needs time to find right place. I told her she could use our guest room temporarily. The way she phrased it made it sound like the decision was already made, but I appreciated that she was including me in the conversation. Of course, I said without hesitation. Family is family. She's welcome here, as long as she needs. Warisa's face lit up with relief and gratitude. You are such good man, Curtis. This is why I love you. Western men always talk about family values, but you actually live them. Her words made me feel proud, like I was finally becoming the kind of man I'd always wanted to be. 3 days later, Sirada arrived in a taxi with 2 large suitcases and a shy smile. She was 28, petite, with the same high cheekbones as Warisa but a more reserved demeanor. "Thank you so much for letting me stay," she said in careful English, bowing slightly. "I promise I won't be trouble. Just 2 weeks, maybe less." I helped carry her suitcases to the guest room and showed her where everything was: the bathroom, the kitchen, the washing machine. "Make yourself comfortable," I told her. "This is your home for as long as you need it." That first evening, Sirada insisted on cooking dinner for all of us as a thank you gesture. She prepared an elaborate spread of Thai dishes I'd never tried before, each one more flavorful and complex than anything Warisa usually made. "Sirada is an amazing cook," Warisa explained as we ate. "She worked in hotel restaurant before management. Maybe she can teach me some recipes." Watching the 2 cousins laugh and chat in Thai while sharing stories I couldn't understand, I felt a warm satisfaction. This was what family felt like. This was what home was supposed to be. I was helping someone in need, supporting Warisa's family, and creating the kind of welcoming space I'd dreamed of when I bought this house. 2 weeks will fly by, I thought to myself as I went to bed that night. I had no idea I was about to lose my own home, one small compromise at a time. Within 3 days, I started noticing changes. Sirada had completely rearranged the guest room, moving furniture around and hanging colorful Thai fabrics on the walls. The transformation was impressive, but it was also thorough, like someone settling in for the long haul rather than a temporary stay. She'd also taken it upon herself to organize our common areas. The living room suddenly had new throw pillows and rearranged decorations. The kitchen cabinets were reorganized according to what she called better efficiency. When I opened a drawer looking for a spatula, I found it in a completely different location. "Sirada is just trying to help," Warisa explained when I mentioned the changes. "She has good eye for design. Don't you think the house looks better?" I had to admit the changes weren't bad, just different. But something about the speed and thoroughness of the transformation made me uneasy. By the end of the first week, Sirada had established what seemed like a permanent routine. Every morning, she'd wake up at dawn and begin preparing elaborate Thai breakfasts that filled the entire house with the smell of fish sauce, chili paste, and fermented shrimp paste. The aromas were so strong they'd seep into my clothes and linger for hours. My usual quiet morning routine of coffee and reading was replaced by the sounds of chopping, frying, and the constant hum of the rice cooker. "Is it possible to maybe cook lighter breakfasts during the week?" I asked Warisa one morning after the smell of fish sauce had given me a headache. "Something that doesn't have such a strong smell." Warisa's expression immediately hardened. "You don't like Thai food?" she asked coldly. "Sirada is cooking traditional breakfast from our culture. She's trying to share something beautiful with you, and you're complaining about the smell." I backpedaled quickly. No, I love Thai food. I just meant maybe we could alternate between Thai breakfast and something lighter, just for variety." But the damage was done. For the rest of the day, both women treated me with cool politeness, and I found myself apologizing multiple times for what I'd said. That afternoon, I discovered that Sirada had taken over laundry duties for the entire household. My clothes were hanging throughout the house, draped over chairs, stretched across doorways, covering every available surface. When I asked where I could hang my wet clothes, Sirada looked confused. "I wash everyone's clothes together," she said. "More efficient use of water and electricity, very environmentally friendly." The house looked like a laundromat. But when I mentioned this to Warisa, she accused me of being inflexible about different ways of doing things. I started to wonder if I was being unreasonable. Maybe this was just cultural adjustment. Maybe I needed to be more open-minded about different approaches to household management. But deep down, something felt wrong. I was starting to feel like a guest in my own home. The bathroom situation was where things really escalated. I came home from the market one afternoon and found Sirada's toiletries covering every surface of our master bathroom counter. Expensive Korean skincare products, multiple hair treatments, makeup supplies. I didn't recognize the counter looked like a cosmetic store had exploded. The shower was still humid from recent use, and there were long black hairs stuck to the walls. When I asked Warisa about it later that evening, she was sitting at our kitchen table paying bills. Sirada mentioned the guest bathroom shower has really weak water pressure, Warisa said without looking up from her laptop. She asked if she could use our bathroom until we fixed the problem. I felt my jaw clench. She asked? When did she ask? She just moved all her stuff in there without saying anything to me. Warisa finally looked up, and her expression was cold. Curtis, she's staying in the smallest room in the house, sleeping on an uncomfortable mattress, and now you want to force her to take cold showers with no pressure. What kind of host does that make you? The word host hit me like a slap. This was my house. I wasn't a host, I was the homeowner. But somehow, Warisa was making me feel like an inhospitable monster for wanting to use my own bathroom. I just think she should have asked both of us before taking over our private space, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Our private space? Warisa's voice rose. Curtis, this is temporary. Family helps family. If you can't make small sacrifices for 2 weeks to help someone in need, then maybe I don't know you as well as I thought I did. She stood up from the table, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Sirada has been nothing but grateful and helpful since she arrived. She cooks for us. She cleans. She's trying to contribute to the household. And all you can do is complain about bathroom space and food smells. What happened to the generous man I fell in love with? I felt the familiar twist in my stomach that came whenever Warisa questioned my character. Was I being selfish? Was I really complaining about small inconveniences while someone was in crisis? You're right, I heard myself saying. I'm sorry. I'll fix the guest bathroom shower this weekend. She can use ours until then. Warisa's face softened immediately. Thank you, baby. This is why I love you. You have such a good heart when you let it show. That night, I lay in bed, listening to Sirada take a 45-minute shower in our bathroom, and I wondered when caring about my own comfort had become a character flaw. But the guest bathroom was never fixed. Every time I mentioned it, there was another excuse: we needed special parts. We needed to research contractors. It wasn't urgent since Sirada was leaving soon anyway. Meanwhile, our master bathroom became completely colonized. I started brushing my teeth at the kitchen sink to avoid the clutter and constant humidity. A month in, the bills started arriving, and I got my first real shock. Our electricity bill had doubled. The water bill was up 60%. The internet bill had somehow tripled. When I sat down with the statements, I realized Sirada had made several changes to our service plans without mentioning it to me. She'd upgraded our internet to the premium package for her work video calls. She'd added 3 premium cable channels to stay connected with Thai news and culture. She'd also been running the air conditioning in her room 24 hours a day, along with a humidifier, an air purifier, and a small refrigerator she'd somehow acquired. When I brought this to Warisa's attention, she was in the garden watering her herb plants. Sirada told me she wanted to contribute to household expenses. Warisa said, not stopping her watering routine. She's trying to pay her fair share. But these aren't contributions, I said, showing her the bills. These are upgrades that are costing me an extra $400 a month. She added services without asking, and now I'm paying for them. Warisa turned off the hose and faced me with an expression of disappointment. Curtis, Sirada is trying to be responsible. She's trying to pay for what she uses. Most people would appreciate a house guest who takes that kind of initiative. Initiative? I could hear my voice getting louder. She changed our service plans without permission and stuck me with the bill. How is that initiative? You're being so cheap about family, Warisa said, her voice taking on that cold edge I'd come to dread. $400 is nothing to you. You sold properties worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But you're going to nickel and dime my cousin who's trying to contribute. The word cheap, stung more than I expected. I'd never been called cheap in my life. I'd always been generous. Maybe too generous. But somehow, Warisa was making my reasonable concern about unexpected expenses sound like petty greed. "It's not about the money," I said weakly. "It's about being asked before changes are made." She shouldn't have to ask permission to have internet for her job or to stay informed about her home country. Warisa shot back. "This is supposed to be her home for 2 weeks, remember? Or are you already regretting your promise to help family?" I felt that familiar knot in my stomach. Every conversation seemed to end with Warisa questioning my generosity or my commitment to her family. I was starting to feel like I was failing some test I didn't understand. "No, of course not," I said. "I just wish we'd discussed it first." "We're discussing it now," Warisa said, turning the hose back on. "And now you know that Sarada is trying to be responsible about her impact on our household. I think you should be grateful instead of suspicious." That evening, I paid the extra bills without saying another word. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being manipulated. The woman I'd fallen in love with had never spoken to me with such contempt. The generous gestures I'd always been proud of were now being used as weapons against me. I was paying more money to feel less welcome in my own home, and somehow that was being framed as my failure to be grateful. 6 weeks into Sarada's 2-week stay, Warisa made a suggestion that should have been a red flag. But I was so worn down by constant conflict that I actually considered it reasonable. We were getting ready for bed, and I was sitting on the edge of our mattress, exhausted from another day of navigating household tensions. "Curtis, I've been thinking," Warisa said, brushing her hair in the mirror. "Sarada mentioned that she's been having trouble sleeping in the guest room. The bed is too firm for her back, and the room gets too much morning light. She's been waking up with headaches." I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache of my own coming on. "Okay. What does she need? Different curtains? A new mattress?" "Well, I was thinking," Warisa continued, not meeting my eyes in the mirror. "You've been staying up late reading every night, and your lamp keeps me awake anyway. And Sarada really needs good sleep because she's been having interviews for new jobs. Maybe it would be better for everyone if you used the guest room temporarily, just until Sarada gets settled somewhere else." The suggestion hit me like cold water. "You want me to give up our bedroom?" "Just temporarily," Warisa said quickly, finally turning to face me. "Think about it logically. You stay up later than we do. You get up earlier for your morning walks. It would actually give you more privacy for your routines, and it would help Sarada get the rest she needs to find work and move out faster." The logic sounded reasonable, but something deep in my gut was screaming that this was wrong. This was our bedroom, our shared space, the room where we'd made love, where we'd talked about our future, where I'd felt most connected to her. "I don't know, Warisa. This feels like a big step. What if?" "What if what?" she interrupted. "Curtis, this is temporary problem solving. We're all sharing space right now, and we need to be flexible. I thought you'd appreciate having somewhere quiet to read without feeling like you're bothering anyone." She sat down beside me on the bed and took my hand. For a moment, she was the woman I'd fallen in love with again, warm, reasonable, caring. Besides, maybe it will be romantic when we get our privacy back. Like a second honeymoon. Against every instinct, I agreed to try it for a few nights. I moved my clothes and books to the guest room, telling myself it was a temporary inconvenience that would help resolve the household tension. The guest room was smaller, the mattress was indeed too firm, and the morning light was brutal, but I told myself it was just for a few days. Within a week, I realized I'd made a terrible mistake. When I went back to the master bedroom to get some of my belongings, I found that Sarada had completely moved in. Her clothes were hanging in the closet. Her skincare products covered the bathroom counter. Her books and personal items were scattered across what used to be my nightstand. "We're just reorganizing while you're not using the space," Warisa explained when I asked about it. "It's more efficient this way. Sarada needs room to spread out her job application materials, and I need help organizing my own things. Once she moves out, we'll move everything back." But there was something in her tone that made me doubt we'd ever move everything back. That night, lying alone in the guest room, I stared at the ceiling and wondered how I'd gone from homeowner to displaced tenant in my own house. I could hear Warisa and Sarada talking and laughing in what used to be our bedroom, their voices carrying through the thin walls. I felt more alone than I had since my divorce. 2 months in, Sarada presented what she called a household harmony schedule. She'd typed it up and printed it out, complete with time slots and assigned responsibilities. I found it taped to the refrigerator when I came back from my morning walk. The schedule assigned me the earliest shower slot at 5:30 a.m. before either of them was awake. Kitchen access was limited during meal preparation hours, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and again from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Living room television time was restricted during Sarada's cultural programming from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Most bizarrely, I was asked to minimize noise and movement during Sarada's meditation and rest period from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., which meant I couldn't use the washing machine, vacuum cleaner, or even walk heavily through the house during those hours. "This is insane," I told Warisa when she got home from work. "I'm being scheduled in my own house like a troublesome roommate." Warisa barely looked up from her phone. "Sarada is just trying to create structure so everyone can coexist peacefully. 3 adults sharing space requires organization and mutual respect." Mutual respect? I could feel my voice rising. Where's the mutual respect for the person who owns this house and pays all the bills? Where's the respect for the person who opened his home to help family? "Curtis, you're being dramatic," Warisa said with that dismissive tone I'd come to hate. "These are just guidelines to prevent conflicts. I think it shows how much Sarada cares about maintaining harmony in our temporary situation." Temporary? I laughed bitterly. It's been 2 months. When exactly is this temporary situation ending? Warisa's expression hardened. "Sarada is still looking for the right opportunity. The job market is difficult right now. Would you prefer we throw her out on the street just to satisfy your impatience?" Once again, I was being painted as the unreasonable one, the selfish one, the one who lacked compassion for family in need. I looked at the schedule again, at my own life reduced to assigned time slots in my own home, and felt something break inside me. But I didn't fight it. I was too tired to fight anymore. I started waking up at 5:15 a.m. to shower during my assigned slot. I ate lunch out every day to avoid the kitchen restriction hours. I wore headphones when walking through the house during meditation time. I followed the rules like a tenant, and every day I followed them, I felt a little more of myself disappear. The worst part was how normal it all started to feel, how quickly I adapted to being managed and scheduled in my own space. I started wondering if this was just what compromise looked like in a real relationship. Maybe I'd been too selfish before. Maybe this was what it meant to truly share a life with someone. But late at night, lying in the guest room listening to the sound of laughter from my former bedroom, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had been stolen from me, and I'd been convinced to help with the theft. 3 months into the temporary arrangement, I discovered the truth about Sarada's job search. I'd been suspicious for weeks because she seemed to spend most of her days at home, despite supposedly having interviews and job meetings. One afternoon, I came back early from the gym and overheard her on a video call in the living room. She was speaking Thai, but she was laughing and eating snacks, clearly chatting with friends rather than conducting business. When she saw me, she quickly switched to English and started talking about market opportunities and strategic planning. But it was obviously fake. That evening, I asked Warisa directly about Sarada's job search progress. We were in the kitchen, and Warisa was preparing one of Sarada's elaborate dinner recipes. "She's been here 3 months, I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Has she had any actual job interviews? Any real prospects?" Warisa continued chopping vegetables without looking at me. "The job market is very competitive right now. Sirada is being selective about opportunities because she wants to find the right fit for her skills. What skills? I pressed. What kind of work is she actually looking for? Hotel management, event planning, customer service, Warisa said vaguely. She has extensive experience in hospitality. Then why isn't she applying to any of the hotels here in Chiang Mai? There are dozens of international hotels that would love to hire someone with her background. Warisa finally stopped chopping and turned to face me. Curtis, you don't understand the Thai job market. It's not like America where you just apply online and get hired immediately. Here, it's about relationships, about finding the right connections, about timing. So what exactly is she doing all day? I asked, because from what I can see, she's watching TV shows and talking to friends on video calls. She's networking, Warisa said firmly. She's exploring online opportunities that would allow her to work remotely. The world is changing, Curtis. Not everyone needs to work in a traditional office anymore. The phrase online opportunities sent a chill down my spine. It sounded like the same vague language I'd heard from too many expats who'd been strung along by promises of easy internet money. What kind of online opportunities? I asked. E-commerce, social media consulting, virtual assistants, Warisa said, her tone suggesting the conversation was over. Sirada is very smart and adaptable. She's exploring multiple income streams instead of limiting herself to one traditional job. That night, I lay in the guest room trying to process what I'd learned. Sirada wasn't looking for work in any traditional sense. She was exploring opportunities and networking, which, from what I could observe, meant she was living rent-free in my house while spending her days on social media and video calls with friends. I was supporting an unemployed adult with no apparent intention of leaving, and I was being told I should be grateful for her contribution to household management. I started spending more time outside the house just to avoid the constant tension and scheduling restrictions. I'd go to coffee shops to read, take long walks through the city, hit the gym twice a day sometimes. My own home had become a place I visited between activities rather than a place I lived. I felt like a visitor in my own life. 4 months in, I finally worked up the courage to demand a concrete timeline for Sirada's departure. I planned the conversation carefully, choosing a moment when all three of us were together and the mood seemed relatively calm. We just finished dinner, and Sirada had prepared one of her more elaborate meals, a gesture that usually preceded discussions about extending her stay. I think we need to talk about next steps, I said, setting down my chopsticks. It's been 4 months now, and I think we need to establish a clear timeline for Sirada to find her own place. The reaction was immediate and coordinated, as if they'd been expecting this conversation and had planned their response. Warisa's eyes immediately filled with tears. I can't believe you're doing this, she said, her voice breaking. I never thought you were the kind of person who would abandon family when they need help most. Sirada looked stricken, her hand flying to her chest. Curtis, have I done something wrong? Have I been too much trouble? I've tried so hard to be helpful and grateful. No, I said quickly, already feeling the familiar guilt creeping in. It's not about being trouble. It's just that this was supposed to be temporary until I found stability, Sirada interrupted, tears now flowing down her cheeks. I thought you understood that finding the right opportunity takes time. I thought you cared about my future, not just getting rid of me as quickly as possible. Warisa stood up from the table, her chair scraping loudly. This is who you really are, isn't it? When things get inconvenient, when sacrifice is required, you just want to throw people away, and you wonder why your first marriage failed. The comment about my marriage hit like a physical blow. I'd shared my painful history with Warisa in confidence, during intimate moments when I thought we were building trust. Now she was using it as a weapon. That's not fair, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I've opened my home. I've paid all the expenses. I've rearranged my entire life to accommodate. Accommodate? Sirada's voice rose. Is that what you call letting family stay in your house? Accommodation? Like I'm some burden you're carrying instead of someone you care about. My mental health is suffering because of your negative energy, she continued, her voice taking on a wounded, fragile quality. I've been trying so hard to contribute, to be grateful, to make this work for everyone. But I can feel your resentment every day. It's affecting my sleep, my job search, my ability to heal from the trauma of being displaced from my home. Warisa nodded vigorously. Sirada has been nothing but helpful and appreciative. She cooks, she cleans, she's trying to build a future, and all you can think about is getting her out of your house as fast as possible. What does that say about your readiness for marriage, for real commitment? The conversation continued for another hour, with both women taking turns explaining how hurt and disappointed they were in my character, how my impatience revealed my lack of understanding about family loyalty, how my focus on timelines showed I didn't really care about Sirada's well-being, how my attitude made them question everything they thought they knew about me. By the end, I found myself apologizing and promising to be more patient. I heard myself saying that family was more important than timelines, that I was sorry for making them feel unwelcome, that I would try to be more supportive of Sirada's journey. That night, alone in the guest room, I stared at the ceiling and wondered how caring about my own well-being had become a character flaw, how wanting my own space back had become evidence of my failure as a partner and a human being. I felt like I was losing my mind, questioning everything I thought I knew about reasonable boundaries and normal relationships, but I was too tired to fight anymore, too worn down by months of constant criticism and emotional manipulation. I just wanted the conflict to stop, even if it meant accepting permanent displacement in my own home. The breaking point came in month 5, and it happened in the most humiliating way possible. I was returning from my morning walk when I heard laughter coming from the living room. Sirada was on a video call, speaking Thai with what sounded like multiple friends. Her laptop was positioned so I could see several faces on the screen, all laughing at something she'd just said. I was heading to the guest room to change clothes when I heard a phrase that stopped me cold. Farang nongo. I'd been in Thailand long enough to know that phrase. It means, stupid foreigner. Sirada continued talking, and I caught enough words to understand the gist of what she was saying. She was telling her friends about the stupid Farang who'd bought them a house and was paying all their bills while living in the smallest room. She was laughing about how easy it had been to convince me that giving up my own bedroom was cultural adaptation and family harmony. She said something about how Western men were so desperate for approval that you could convince them that their own generosity was selfishness. The laughter from her friends was loud enough that I could hear it from across the room. I stood frozen in the hallway, listening to my life being discussed as entertainment. I was the punchline to a joke I didn't even know I was part of. My kindness, my attempts to be culturally sensitive, my willingness to sacrifice for family, it was all just material for their amusement. That evening, I confronted Warisa while she was getting ready for bed in what used to be our bedroom. I heard Sirada talking to her friends today. I said, my voice shaking with anger and humiliation. I heard her calling me a stupid foreigner and laughing about how she's manipulated me into living in the guest room. Warisa's reaction was immediate and predictable. You were eavesdropping on private conversations? That's a violation of privacy, Curtis. How can I trust someone who spies on house guests? She was in the living room speaking loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. I shot back, and she was making fun of me to her friends, calling me stupid for being generous to your family. I don't believe that, Warisa said flatly. Sirada would never say anything disrespectful about you. You must have misunderstood. Your Thai isn't good enough to understand complex conversations. I understood enough, I said. She was laughing about the stupid Farang who pays all the bills while living in the guest room. Warisa's face hardened. Even if she did say something like that, which I doubt, maybe you should ask yourself why she might feel frustrated. You've been making her feel unwelcome for months. You've been counting every penny she costs. questioning every decision she makes, begrudging every bit of space she occupies. Maybe she's just venting about your negative attitude. I felt like I was going insane. My negative attitude? I've given up my bedroom, my bathroom, my kitchen access, my living room privileges. I follow a schedule to exist in my own house. How is that a negative attitude? Your resentment is poisonous, Warisa said, her voice cold as ice. Even when you're trying to be nice, we can all feel your anger underneath. It's toxic to live with someone who makes you feel like a burden every single day. Maybe you should take a break from each other, she continued. Maybe if you can't handle supporting my family, you're not ready for the kind of commitment that marriage requires. Maybe we rushed into this living situation before you were emotionally prepared for it. The threat was clear. If I continued to push back against this arrangement, I would lose Warisa entirely. I was being given a choice. Accept permanent displacement in my own home, or lose the woman I'd moved across the world to be with. That night, I sat in the guest room and finally admitted to myself what I'd been avoiding for months. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't cultural adaptation. This wasn't family emergency assistance. This was a systematic takeover of my home and my life, orchestrated by two women who saw me as a resource rather than a person. I'd been so afraid of being seen as the selfish Western man who didn't understand family values that I'd allowed myself to be convinced that my own well-being didn't matter. I'd been gaslighted so thoroughly that I'd started to believe that wanting basic respect in my own home was a character flaw. Desperate for some kind of clarity about my legal options, I contacted a Thai lawyer. The consultation took place in his small office near the old city, and what I learned made my situation feel even more hopeless. Mr. Curtis, the lawyer said in careful English, your situation is complex because you never established formal documentation for this living arrangement. Miss Sarada has been residing in the property for 5 months with your permission. Under Thai law, this could be considered an established tenancy. But I never signed a lease with her, I protested. There was never any formal agreement. She was supposed to be a temporary guest. The lawyer nodded sympathetically. Yes, but without documentation proving the temporary nature of her stay, and given that she has been contributing to household expenses and maintaining the property, the law may view her as having tenant rights. My heart sank. What does that mean practically? It means that legally removing her could require formal eviction proceedings, which can take months and require substantial evidence of lease violations or illegal activity, he explained. Additionally, because Miss Warisa is your domestic partner who shares the residence, she has significant say in household decisions. If she opposes Miss Warisa, Sarada's removal, it becomes much more difficult legally. So, I'm trapped, I said flatly. In my own house, that I bought with my own money, I'm trapped. Not trapped, the lawyer corrected gently, but your options are limited and would require significant time, money, and documentation. You would need to establish a paper trail showing the temporary nature of the original arrangement, document any violations of household agreements, and potentially pursue formal eviction proceedings. He leaned forward, his expression serious. Mr. Curtis, may I ask, have you considered that the simplest solution might be to negotiate a voluntary departure agreement, perhaps offering Ms. Sarada some financial assistance to relocate might resolve this more quickly and amicably than legal proceedings? The irony wasn't lost on me. I was being advised to pay someone to leave the house I was already paying for them to live in. How much are we talking about? I asked, though the question made me sick. Typically, 3 to 6 months' worth of reasonable living expenses, the lawyer said. Perhaps 60, 0 to 120, 0 baht, depending on her circumstances and the local rental market. I did the math quickly. Between 1,700 and 3,400 to buy back my own home. After already spending months paying elevated utility bills, increased grocery costs, and the hidden expenses of supporting an additional adult, The lawyer continued, I must also advise you that this situation has put your relationship with Ms. Warisa at legal risk. If she supports Ms. Sirada's continued residence and you pursue eviction, it could create grounds for her to claim domestic instability. This could affect any future marriage arrangements or property agreements. I left the lawyer's office feeling more trapped than ever. My generosity had created a legal nightmare. My kindness had been weaponized against me. And now I was being told that my only realistic options were to pay someone to leave my own house or risk losing my relationship and potentially my legal standing in Thailand. That evening, I started doing what I should have done months earlier, documenting everything. I created a detailed spreadsheet of all the additional expenses Sirada's presence had created. I began keeping a journal of daily interactions and conversations. I took photos of how the household spaces had been taken over and reorganized. I saved screenshots of the household harmony schedule and the various rule changes that had been implemented without my input. It felt pathetic, collecting evidence to prove I was being mistreated in my own home, but I needed something concrete, something that would help me make sense of what was happening to me. The documentation process was also therapeutic in a strange way. Writing down the daily reality of my situation helped me see clearly how far I'd fallen from being a homeowner to being a managed tenant in my own space.